Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us again today for a continuation of our transportation or motor carrier regulations in Chapter 103 of the South Carolina Code of Regulations. The notice for today indicates that we would begin at 10 o'clock this morning, Wednesday, February 23rd, to review particular regulations related to insurance in the motor carrier regulations.
Jocelyn,
Yes.
I apologize, but we can't hear you.
Oh, you
Or at
can't?
least I can't.
Yeah,
All right. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. This is Gwen McGriff.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McGriff. Charlie, you can't hear me? Okay, Mr. Popowski.
I hear you.
Okay, great. Office of Regulatory Staff, I didn't know if Attorney Knowles has returned, or Attorney Huber.
Morning, Miss Boyd. This is Chris Huber. We can hear you okay?
All right, so it's just, has Mr. Terraney left the WebEx meeting? Ms. Thomas? Mr. Terraney? He did? All right, everybody, if you give us a second, please. We're going to allow Mr. Terraney to join us.
Yeah, Jocelyn, it looks like he was having a problem and sent in the chat that he didn't have any audio
Oh,
and then inquired if anyone else did.
oh, okay. So can everybody just hold on a second, please? Charlie? You said he's back. Would you, Ms. Thomas, would you send him a chat asking him to log off and on again? Because we know he's present, but he can't hear me, and everybody else can. If need be, Ms. Thomas, we can let him provide him with the conference call number. Ask him if he would like to participate. He can call in, and we. Okay, thank you. What did he say?
I can hear you now.
Good. Good morning, Charlie.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure what's wrong.
Okay. So, the purpose of today's workshop is a follow-up workshop to our previous workshop this year related to the commission staff's review of its motor carrier regulations. And I didn't say this initially, but Office of Regulatory Staff just want to thank you for your follow-up correspondence that the commission received on January 21st regarding the last workshop. I really appreciate it. It's in the DMS, the docket management system. And we decided at our last workshop, everyone, that we would continue today's workshop, which began at 10 o'clock this morning, Wednesday, February 23rd, to further review Regulations 103-133, subsection 6F, and also sections 103-170 through 103-180. So if I'm correct, I'd just like for everyone to know who's participating this morning. From the Office of Regulatory Staff, General Counsel Huber.
Good morning, Ms. Boyd. Yes, this is Chris Huber for the Office of Regulatory Staff, and with me this morning is Thomas McGill, who is our manager of safety, transportation, and the emergency management department.
All right. Good morning, Mr. McGill. Good morning, Attorney Huber. General Counsel McGriff from the Department of Insurance, are you present with us today?
Yes.
Thank you. Welcome. Attorney Charlie Terani.
I'm here.
Thank you. And Attorney David Popowski.
I am here.
Great. Did I miss anyone? Well, thank you all for participating again this morning. So, unless someone else has comments prior to us beginning, I shared with General McCounsel McGriff some correspondence which she was not familiar with during the last workshop regarding Mr. Terani's comments, which are filed under docket number 2020-247, and those comments are dated June 8th, 2021, as it relates to the Commission staff's review of its motor carrier regulations. In particular, I showed to her on the camera number 9, where Mr. Terani mentioned the Commission reviewing an increase of insurance requirements for passenger carriers, and in his letter he refers to Regulation 103-172. And so we asked the Department of Insurance if they wouldn't mind participating in a future workshop, and they graciously agreed to do so. We're very grateful, General McCounsel McGriff, for your agency's participation in the PSC's workshop. So, Ms. McGriff, have you had a chance to review Mr. Terani's letter and perhaps any of the other regulations that were noticed for today's workshop?
I did. Let me say at the outset that the department does not generally comment or make recommendations as to what the minimum limits should be.
Yes, ma'am.
What I indicated on the last call was that I would check the requirements for, I guess, what I call our sister states, other states in the southeastern region, and basically kind of try to provide that kind of information to the commission, because I believe that this is an issue that falls within the purview of the commission, DMV, and the South Carolina General Assembly.
Okay. Well, we can proceed either with the regulations that I've mentioned, or we can proceed with the information that you are ready to tell us about as it relates to the other southeastern states, your review, and as
Sure.
related to insurance.
For South Carolina, for passenger vehicles, 1 to 7, it's 25, 50, 25. That's basically the same as it would be for a personal vehicle. And I believe that's under 3877 150 of our code, as well as other provisions of Title 56 for 8 to 15 passengers. It's 25, 125, 16 or above. it's 25, 30, 25. But when we get down to like Georgia as a state that I compared South Carolina to, for passengers, 1 to 12, they require 100, 300, 100,000, 300,000, or 50,000. 13 plus, 100,000, 500,000, 50,000. And for interest, what they call intrastate motor carriers, the amount of the minimum limits is 100, 300, 50. That's Georgia. For North Carolina, they have a requirement from the information we could find of for 1 to 15 of 1.5 million of combined single limits. 16 plus is 5 million combined single limits. For taxis, 100, 300, 50. And they had some other requirements there for property carriers. For Florida, it was 300,000 in a combined single limit for passengers, or 100, 350 as far as the minimum limits. I'll send you, I guess the information that I'm talking about and the source for it so that you could basically verify that information.
Yeah, I was going to ask you just if you had the statute statute numbers for Georgia, North Carolina, and Florida. I was just going to take those and review them. But I do want to, if I may start from Title 56. Was there a code section there?
Yes.
Okay, may I have that if you have it?
Hold on one second, let me pull it, please. I think 56.920 basically talks about financial responsibility requirements. And I think it lists in there the minimum limits for 1 to 7, 8 to 15, and 16 or more. But I'll verify that and I'll send that to you.
Okay. Basically, I think what you stated, or you can say, well, I didn't comment on that, General Counsel McGriff, if you deem necessary. I'm just trying to clarify for me that basically the Commission's regulation, in particular 103-172, does not conflict with the statutory law that perhaps Department of Insurance either abides by, or the current law that it has regulatory authority over. Did I capture that correctly?
I think if you're saying the minimum limits, especially for 1 to 7, appears to be consistent with what with the statutes that we basically administer here for at the department. That which would be, I think, 3877 150.
Okay, but the 8 to 15 and 16 or more are different, or there isn't a standard there?
In our statute, no, but I believe that comes out of the Department of Motor DMV. And I'll pull those code sections and send those to you. And I think it's really important to have DMV as a part of this discussion. I did try to reach out to them, but they've had some retirements over the summer. And so they have new people in those positions. So I will continue to try to reach out to them to have them contact you.
That's very kind of you. Thank you so much. Okay. Well, we'll review the other statutes if you have the opportunity to send those to us. We'll make sure the other parties are in the docket, Ms. McGriff, but we will make sure that they are provided the information that you send to us.
All right.
May I give you an email address if you don't mind, please,
Sure,
ma'am? All right.
Sure, ma'am.
It's contact, CONTACT, at PSC, like Public Service Commission, .sc.gov.
Right. I have that. The only other thing that I would add from a department's perspective is, because we do look at the market, I will tell you that right now we're experiencing in the liability insurance market a tightening or a hardening of the market. We're not saying what should be done on this particular issue, but I will tell you that we are getting some we are seeing some businesses that are contacting us, basically indicating that for some lines of liability, especially on the commercial side, that they're having difficulty finding some of the limits because we don't have a mandate to write in South Carolina, so carriers can opt to write or not. If minimum limits are increased, that could have an impact on the availability and the affordability of coverage. Doesn't mean that they don't need to be increased, but I'm just trying to just provide that information to you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And we would, yes, ma'am, we would have to, whatever staff proposes would have to go to public hearing too. Um, if, and, before the commissioners who would make the final decision. But,
Right.
and we'd also, we'll probably conduct another, or ask for comments or another review after we receive the information that you send us.
Okay.
There is some pending legislation right now, Senate Bill 1045, that would impact the commission's regulations and jurisdiction of motor carriers in this state. And so we're watching that also. So,
Okay.
but I'm sure we will follow up with those persons who are interested after we receive your information. I think we need to have some more discussions just to get
Okay.
feedback from them.
And most of my comments are about availability. Market availability is about the admitted market, not about the surplus lines market. I noted that in your regulations, most of the requirements, I think in 172, no, 170, I believe, right? 170, there's a requirement that they had to have coverage issued through the license or admitted market, but there was also a secondary provision that said that you would accept a coverage, other insurance that was approved by, I don't think it says ICC, but that's the way that I read it. The STB?
Yeah, state bureau. I think it's the Transportation Bureau.
The State Transportation Bureau?
I think. Well, I'll confirm
Okay.
that. Yes.
And
ma'am.
I wasn't quite sure what, first, I wasn't quite sure what the State Transportation Bureau
Is.
did. And then the other was, I wasn't quite sure what types of policies or coverage they approved.
If you would give me a second, Ms. McGriff. They're listed somewhere else in our regs. I just need to.
Oh, I can find that. Don't worry about that. I can look at that. I just wanted
I'm
to
wrong.
just
I'm
make
wrong.
that comment.
I'm wrong. It's in the definitions. It's under 103-102.
Okay.
And it's number 26. It's the Surface Transportation Board. I think that's a federal. I think that's a federal entity.
Okay.
Yeah. That is. It's the remnant of the old ICC, one of the remnants of the old ICC. I can interject that.
Thank you, Mr. Papaz. Yeah, it appears as if they're still in existence, Ms. McGriff. The Surface Transportation Board.
Thank you.
They're charged with economic regulation of various modes of surface transportation, primarily freight rail, it says on their website. Okay, Ms. McGriff, thank you very much. I want to make sure I don't have anything else to ask you. Because let's see, 133. Yeah, so we will review your research, your references that you've mentioned this morning in your other materials, and just have another follow-up discussion with those who are interested in talking further. Now, Mr. General Counsel Huber, Attorney Terani and Attorney Popowski, do you have anything you want to add regarding our reason for being here today?
I would if it
He's got a problem.
maybe I don't.
Okay, Charlie, I think they're saying you. Okay, please mute your computer, Charlie.
You want me to go ahead?
Yeah, Attorney Popowski, you can go ahead, and then we'll come back to Mr. Terani.
Yeah, just, I don't, as much as I do at the Commission and Household Goods, I've had a few bus cases, but not many. And they typically don't want to hire or can't afford to hire lawyers. But the limits that were discussed that we have in existence now that I'm hearing that are basically the minimum limits for motor vehicles, regular driving motor vehicles, are too low, I think. And what I'm hearing out of North Carolina, well, Georgia certainly would be an improvement, and North Carolina really takes it up to the modern era. On the other hand, what Ms. McGriff says too is is a question of affordability. Two things: I would not ambush the existing industry that is licensed in South Carolina in terms of raising it all out of the blue one night without their thorough input into this. That's I guess my first point. My second point is that even nationally, there's an organization called American Bus Association. It's the trade association for the bus industry that might be tapped for some information on how things are on a national level. They could very well have some materials that explain that. My third question is, does ORS, I think, that keeps typically a Form E for liability and motor carrier does not show the amount of coverage, whether it's $1 million, 2 million, 3 million. Does the ORS have any information on the coverages for each licensee, the limits, how much they have? I'm curious to see if a client of mine came in, I would urge them very strongly to have more than the limits required for their buses, even the 15 passenger vehicles. So does RIS have any information on current licensees' coverages? That's all I have.
General Counsel Huber, are you able to, or do you want to respond?
My understanding that those forms, the Form E and I think it's Form F, I get confused in the letters that Mr. Prohaski is talking about. Well, they don't specify the amount of coverage. They are a certification from the insurance company. Like, the coverage meets the minimum required under the law.
Right.
As far as what companies are typically getting in excess of that, I really can't comment. I don't know if I have really a general observation to offer on that, but that's, as far as the form goes, it's a certification that the minimum has been issued, which would mean they've met the requirements of the regulation.
I would perhaps, if I could follow up on that, I would consider maybe in a notice of some kind, maybe in this proceeding, if they could pick it up, that any bus company that would voluntarily offer that for information, I think it would be helpful for the commission to know that. So in other words, what the reality is in South Carolina in terms of the kind of coverages bus companies voluntarily obtain that would be above and beyond the required limits. I have to move for a minute. I'm back.
Okay. So everybody, I think from staff's perspective, the reason that our additional review of the coverage, knowing that it would maybe cost the carriers more money, was just I guess, if the question arose as to why in several years the commission had not reviewed those limits and for what reason. I think is why the commission staff wanted to talk more about the issue. And I think it is good. I appreciate General Counsel McGriff's review and the other states, and if it has been effective in those other states, why? Because I'm not an insurance expert, and I don't know what the costs are, the costs that the carriers are incurring in other states. But I think it's incumbent upon staff to do their due diligence as it relates to this, because it is I think it's a valid point that's been brought to our attention. And so even if the limits remain the same, I think that staff should at least have enough justification for why it did not recommend in this draft proposal an increase in the limits or any type of modification in the limits. Okay, so Attorney Popowski, I appreciate your comments. Attorney Terani, are you ready for your comments? Okay, are you there? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can now.
All right.
Attorney Terani, are you ready for your comments now?
I'd love to give you some comments.
Thank you so much.
By the way, the problem seemed to be the toll-free number. If
Oh, does it not work?
well, it works as in I can hear, but I couldn't speak.
Oh, was he muted?
When
On the
I
line?
redialed with the toll number,
Mm-hmm.
I could speak. You could hear me.
Okay. We're probably
Anyway,
going to ask you some
my comment-
follow-up questions if you don't mind after this is over, because if we're having technical problems, we want to know about them. Okay, please proceed.
Well, my comments are very simple about liability, and David's been talking about buses, and I think that's they would apply to buses as well. But I cannot help but think of limousines. And if we have, and God forbid it hadn't happened yet, but if we have a bad accident with a limousine taking a bunch of kids to the prom, and there's not enough coverage to pay their medical bills, there are going to be some very hard questions asked of this commission. And it's something that has worried me since I was at the commission, honestly. And yeah, I think it needs to be addressed.
Well, we appreciate your comments, Attorney. I was about to give you a promotion. You heard me call you Commissioner.
I'll take
No,
actually,
Attorney.
I wouldn't take it wrong, T and John.
No, that's why we followed up. Because as I just mentioned to everyone else, I think even if the limits aren't changed, staff should have solid basis for not recommending the change. Commissioners, of course, have the final decision. But I think a sufficient review should be conducted, Attorney Terani. Okay,
I mean, think about what the Uber type carriers
Mm-hmm.
are. I mean, they're carrying far more than the 25, 50. That was part of the reason they got deregulated. And I don't think the issue is that you're riding in a deregulated carrier or a carrier. Your injury is going to be the same.
Yes, sir.
But I agree with David that we need to have Mr. Pozowski, I should say. We should have, we need to hear from industry, and I predict they'll protest. And I'm usually on the side of the transportation industry in these things, but I think this is kind of for their own good kind of thing.
Okay. I'm going to come back to Mr. Popowski for his response too. But Attorney Terani, are you recommending just all of the carriers that the commission regulates? Once we create our proposal and we've gotten feedback, and then we create our proposal, if there are recommended changes to the limits, that we just invite those carriers to a workshop prior to filing the proposed regulation? Is that your?
Oh, of course, yes.
Okay. And we don't regulate the American Bus Association, but we should at least invite them. Is that what you're recommending to Attorney Popowski?
But it wouldn't hurt. But my only thought about American Bus Association, you just go on their website. It could be good information on its website, and perhaps in the appropriate office within that association, there could be someone who could be very helpful in giving a national picture of what things are like. I mean, I hear what Ms. McGriff says about the market tightening. And I can imagine that's the case. And so I would just refer the commission to that association, its website, and any individual there that might be helpful.
Okay. Thank you. Mrs. Torini, were you through with your comments?
One thing I do wonder was like for this workshop, was notice given to all the transportation carriers and they just
No.
weren't interested, or
No, when we this was opened under the docket, so those persons who have filed comments under this docket 2020-247A were notified of today's workshop. We have not conducted a workshop with the motor carriers yet.
I see. Well, that makes sense. I understand.
But we will. We just need to. I would like to review General Counsel McGriff's information, and then allow staff to process its thoughts, and then conduct another review if we think that the limits should be adjusted. Regardless, we would have sufficient justification one way or the other. You filed your comments, so we have to, in my opinion, we have to, in our review, Attorney Torini, we have to have some reason for maintaining status quo, increase, decrease, whatever, because you've mentioned the issue. But no, your question about motor carriers being invited, they have not been invited yet. Okay, so that's Attorney Torini and Attorney Popowski. And I'm hoping too, to be honest with you, that we can get Department of Consumer Affairs on board too, whenever we, if there are modifications that staff recommends, that we can get them to weigh in also. That would be helpful. All right, now, General Counsel Huber, would you please let us know if you have any?
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today, but we have nothing further at this time. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. So I think we've covered the regulations that were noticed today. General Counsel McGriff, we really, really appreciate all of your work and your feedback this morning, and you and your team's research. It's been very helpful, and we look forward to receiving your documentation, whatever you choose to file with us, at that contact@psc.sc.gov email address. I only mentioned that one, General Counsel McGriff, too, because that's our public email address for filings, and so I wanted to share that with you. Okay. Have I missed anyone that wants to say something, anything else?
No.
All right. Thank you so much for your participation this morning.
Thank you. Good to hear everybody and see everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.